SCHD ETF is a high quality ETF that offers everything I personally look for when it comes to investing into ETFs in general. These being things like growth, diversification, and dividends, along with massive dividend growth. But when it comes to the SCHD ETF, one of the most important aspects that many investors that even hold the ETF don't fully understand is how the ETF's holdings are chosen for SCHD. When investing in any ETF, the holding breakdown is obviously going to be very important, due to the fact that when you buy into an ETF, you're basically buying into a small portion of each of the holdings within this ETF. But in this video, we are going to go over every single stock within the SCHD basket, if you will, and explain how and why stocks are added into the index that SCHD tracks to begin with. Now, if you hold the SCHD ETF, please make sure to stick around and pay close attention, because this is going to be very important moving forward. So heading over to the Charles Schwab Asset Manager website, we see right here SCHD ETF, and then if we go to portfolio, we can see as of right now every single stock that's currently in the portfolio as of filming this video. So this is the first thing I want all SCHD investors to be aware of. To be aware of the actual underlying stocks within the ETF. To give you an idea, some of the biggest holdings as of right now in SCHD are companies like Amgen, making up 4.46 of the overall ETF as of right now. And because the SCHD ETF is so large, these are big positions. We're talking 7.8 million shares plus of AMGN. The next biggest position right now is AbbVie, currently 13.4 million shares of AbbVie. Then we have Chevron Corp, 11.7 million shares. A few of the other top holdings, companies like Merck, companies like Verizon, Coca-Cola, Texas Instruments, Cisco, Pfizer, the Home Depot, UPS, and so on and so forth. Now, before we go through and I show you exactly how these different stocks actually make it into the ETF, which surprisingly a lot of investors that own shares of SCHD have no idea how it even works. There's one word of caution I want to give to everyone, and this goes for SCHD investors or investors that buy into any ETF for that matter. When you buy into the SCHD ETF, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, you need to make sure that you want to have exposure to all the different names within the basket of holdings. And keep in mind, there's never going to be a single stock inside of SCHD or most ETFs for that matter that's going to make up a large portion of the portfolio. The whole point of ETFs, of course, is to be diversified. And what's great about that, for example, is that if there are certain names within the basket of holdings of any ETF that you buy into, if they don't perform, let's say, or maybe they're going through some sort of controversy, the other names within the ETF will hopefully most likely pick up the slack as long as the ETF's methodology of stock picking is good enough. So the next thing we're going to have to do is exactly see how stocks are actually added and taken away from the basket of stocks within the SCHD ETF. Now, right here on the home page for the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, it says the fund's goal is to track as closely as possible, before fees and expenses, the total return of the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index. So this is what we're going to be looking for here, the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index, because that's exactly what it's tracking. So just a simple Google search away and boom, we are here. This right here is the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index. This is exactly for the most part what SCHD tracks. So whatever stocks are added or taken away from the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index are going to impact SCHD significantly, which is again very important for investors to understand. So it says right here the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index is designed to measure the performance of high dividend yielding stocks in the US with a record of consistently paying dividends, selected for fundamental strength relative to their peers based on financial ratios. And to learn a little bit more about how stocks enter or exit, we have to head over here to methodology. And if we go to page 20, we see right here the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index methodology is explained in great detail. So listen very closely. These are how stocks enter or exit the index that SCHD tracks. So again, if you buy shares of SCHD, you not only should understand exactly how the ETF works, but the index that it tracks and how the index actually works. So it says index universe. The index universe is defined as the constituents of the Dow Jones US Broad Stock Market Index excluding REITs. Stocks must pass following screens. So in order for stocks to be included in this index, they have to have a minimum of 10 consecutive years of dividend payments. So that right there really crosses out a lot of different stocks across the entire stock market. If a stock has been paying dividends consecutively for 10 years, for the most part, it sort of weeds out some of the lower quality stuff just right there. Also, minimum FMC of US 500 million and also minimum 3-day ADVT of US 2 million. Now it then says stocks passing all three screens above, are then ranked in ascending order by IAD yield, defined as a stock's IAD, not including special dividends, divided by its price. The top half of securities are based on this rankings are eligible for stock selection. The reference date for dividend payments history is the last business day of December, while FMC and ADVT are the last business days of February. Now the index construction is as follows. Number 1, the eligible securities are ranked by each of their 4 fundamental base characteristics. Things like free cash flow to total debt. Also, return on equity. Also, IAD yield and 5-year dividend growth rate defined as this formula right here. Now there's also more rules, like for example, the 4 rankings are equal weighted to create a composite score, and the eligible securities are ranked based on composite score. The top 100 ranked stocks by the composite score are selected by index, subject to the following buffer rules that favor current stocks within the index during the annual review or the reconstitution. It then goes on to say that the constituent stocks will remain in the index as long as they are among the top 200 rankings by composite score. Non-constituent stocks are added to the index based on the rankings until the constituent count reaches 100. If 2 non-constituents have the same composite score, the non-constituents with the higher dividend yield will be selected. Also, weightings is another important factor. It says stocks in the index are weighted quarterly based on the FMC weighted approach. Now, this is also important to note because the SCHD ETF does go through a reconstitution on a yearly basis, which means it's never really worth it to get too married to any stock within the underlying index, because the stock could be here this year and gone the next year. Even if it means that one of the stocks within the index might be one of your favorites, it might have to go if it doesn't meet the requirements during that up and coming reconstitution. So there's sort of a basic breakdown on how the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF actually works as far as how the holdings are added or taken away from the index. Now, like I said earlier, I think it's sort of important to pay close attention to the holdings within any ETF out there, not just SCHD. And this is especially important because over the last year, we've seen SCHD perform pretty bad. It's currently down around 5 or 6% year to date. And this is because there's different top holdings within this ETF right now that are performing quite bad year to date. Take AbbVie, for example, down 8.22% year to date. Even if we look at another one of SCHD's top 10 holdings, Coca-Cola, year to date performance for Coke, it's down 11.07%. So just a word of wisdom, just a piece of advice. When you buy into any ETF out there across the entire stock market, no matter what ETF it is, pay close attention to what's actually within the holdings, because you'd be surprised how many investors completely look past this. But now I want to hear from you guys down below. When it comes to the SCHD ETF and the holdings within it, what is your number 1 favorite stock that makes up the ETF, and what is one of the stocks in the holdings that you absolutely hate? Comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.